Thank you.
I'm going to call the meeting to order, please. Please join us in the pledge.
I'm also calling the selectmen's meeting to order because this is not a joint meeting, they're separate meetings.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me just go through a few things and then explain why we have a joint meeting. At last week's pre-town meeting, we thought it was prudent for us, in the sense of cooperation, to end up inviting the Board of Selectmen to also talk, because there was a difference in the budgets. And let me just go down some things as to where we are in this whole budgeting process. The reason for the meeting with the BOS is to make adjustments, differences between the Board of Selectmen and the Templeton Advisory Board town budgets. This is strictly town budgets, folks. If you're here for any other thing, that's what we'll be talking about. And make additional cuts of $12,000 to balance the FY14 budget. Some background. Last year, between the cuts made on the floor and during town meeting, $127,000 was cut from the budget. Cuts in hours were made from 40 hours to 35, and no stipends were issued to anyone. Town offices closed on Friday. $127,000 went into stabilization. DOR required Templeton not to use the one-time revenue of $163,000 plus from the ice storm money as part of the budget. Special town meeting was held earlier this year, removed $163,000 from the budget, and the stabilization fund money was used to bring the stabilization fund balance to zero. We basically used all the stabilization and zeroed out that money. So we have no stabilization fund sitting here right today, and no free cash. FY14 budget sheets. I know I had some out there. I didn't anticipate such a large crowd. The Board of Selectmen, if you look at the sheet for those folks that are there, the bottom line, that will be on page 5. The Board of Selectmen level funded their budget and made an additional $20,000 worth of cuts. The Templeton Advisory Board level funded and made $51,610 worth of cuts. Using those figures, yes.
May I record?
Pardon me?
May I record?
Yes, you may.
Is anyone else recording? Sorry.
Using the Templeton Advisory Board figures, there still needs to be $11,972 in cuts from the proposed Advisory Board budget to balance in FY14. The budget, the FY budget, in addition to level funding, needs to have a sum of $63,582 in cuts to bring the budget in balance. Final results of cuts between FY13 and FY14. Total cuts between the 2 years are going to be $191,082. Employee hours were cut from 40 hours to 35 hours. No stipends, and the town office buildings are still closed on Friday. The question that I can end up answering is, where did the additional cuts come from? The advisory board, we level funded, and for those budgets that came in with lower amounts than level funding, that's what we used. So any questions on that? Yes, Virginia.
This afternoon, we spent, and yesterday, actually, we spent a great deal of time with the treasurer and the accountant. And the sheet that we presented tonight says we are $77,000 in the black. So we need to find out where all these numbers got so different.
Excuse me, Virginia, do you have copies of yours?
I do.
Can I make some copies and hand them out? Oh, I got one from your efficient town manager.
The tax levy number is a number that we got directly from the assessor. So, I think you have a different tax levy number.
Virginia, I have a sheet that's 427,213. Is that the sheet for the selectmen?
No, this is one we did today.
I didn't get a copy of that.
Jeff, did you give Julie a package?
We're making copies.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
A packet, we only have the one sheet, Virginia, we don't have a packet, it's a single sheet.
You were gonna bring the green sheet too.
It's right there, it's in front of you. Our budget is there.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you pass this down to Julie?
Thank you.
She's getting much. I guess I can't multitask. Pass these down, please.
Sue, can you speak to the tax levy? Because the numbers that we had in the tax levy were ones you agreed to yesterday.
He's actually two.
Big old one for myself.
I bet you.
I gave mine away. No, you have too many, pass them down.
You don't have one of them?
Yes. Virginia's numbers?
They're not Virginia's, they're selectmen's
Oh,
numbers.
I'm sorry, forgive me. You need to bring them back.
Using the same numbers.
So can you do us a favor and speak to the tax levy? Because the number that we have is the number that you presented to us yesterday.
Okay. You did a little different from Will.
We did it the way you told us to.
I know, and Will's number is different because Will has included the debt exclusions in that number,
And also the new growth.
and the new growth, well,
Well,
she's
we have
got,
new growth in ours.
do you?
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
use for a new growth figure?
28,000.
Okay. It was, wait a minute, if you bear with me here, sorry.
Add that, the 595, 850.
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, I was gonna say, that should be it, it's because, it includes the debt exclusion.
From the treasurer.
Because that will be the total tax levy that we can raise through taxation.
Okay.
Our levy limit, wait a minute, levy limit from last year, 7,050,514. Add 2.5% to that, 2.5% of that is 176,262.85, $28,000 of new growth, and your figure will be 7,254,776.
Okay, well, I was just going by the one you gave us
Yeah,
yesterday.
that's
so-
exactly it, that's what you've got. And then the only difference is you have the 595,859 down
In a
as
different
debt
place.
exclusion, right, and he's got it included in there.
Those figures are part of the packet that I gave you today, Virginia.
Yeah, I'm-
They're broken
I'm
out.
looking- I'm looking at yours.
Okay, there is a sheet that actually shows you that as part of the packet.
Well, everybody doesn't have that sheet, so I want to make sure everybody understands.
Caution, please.
Yes.
Just remember that the school debt is not included in the town's long-term debt numbers. It's voted as a separate article, and it is debt excluded. So in order to reach the correct levy limit, we have to add in the school debt to the
Not
debt
the levy
exclusion.
limit, the tax levy, the school debt
Tax
will be
levy, I'm
added in
sorry,
there
yes.
too.
That is correct, except one thing, when talking with the accountant, it's a wash because you end up adding it to the levy and end up taking it from the expenditures, and it's basically I didn't want to end up confusing people with trying to do something totally different than what was done last year by the accountants.
Just be careful that because it's debt excluded, it's above the 2.5 limit.
I understand that.
Okay. I mean, if you want to consider that if the total of all the receipts equal the total of all the expenditures, then everything is a wash.
That's correct.
So I think we need to show the things that we're, the revenue that we're raising.
In
the debt
looking
we're
at
spending.
previous years that were done by the accountant,
Yep.
he does not include that in, and I checked a number of years, and I basically used his template because, like I said, I didn't want to confuse the folks because it's not in there. It would be wrong for us to do that. We're going to end up having changes next year to this whole budgeting process because we have new software.
We also have a new accountant, though, that is speaking, what Dan is saying is what he told us during our meeting this afternoon.
Right, and I talked with him also this afternoon, and he said that it was a wash, and that we could leave it out as long as we understood that would be part of it anyway.
All right, let's move on. We have some other differences. The local receipts, we had 2511, 411, and you have 1331, 466.
That's correct. If you look in your packet, the numbers from the accountant, there's a sheet that describes that from Fred Aponte. Line 22 in the recap sheet shows that all of these things, 900, and this took me a while to understand why we shouldn't include this. I originally thought that we had to include this. We have $992,211.34. Some of those items, water enterprise and sewage enterprise debt, is not something that goes on the town. That's something that is within their budgets. The municipal light, I took that out, and as you saw, I made it as a separate thing so people understood what the actual light department was giving us, $150,000 this year. Sewer betterment, that's income that comes into the community as far as betterment, and that's on our sheet separately. The retirement for the water, electric, and sewer is something that they pay. That shouldn't be included. And the selectmen's portion of that should not be included. And that's this sheet here, Virginia, it's in the packet.
Right, I understand Mr. Aponte once again has said that we should have we should not have the sewer betterments on that, in that section, and we should have the total amount of, where is it? Retirement, the total retirement amount, and not just part of it.
The retirement for those end up coming out of their budgets, not the towns.
Dan?
Town's responsible for paying the retirement, and we do get reimbursed by the enterprises. And if we don't appropriate enough money to pay the retirement, we won't be able to pay it.
Well, I have some questions about the retirement and also about the budgeting. I see some figures on there that I don't understand on the sheet that you gave us on the first. But I'll address that at a later time.
It's the first I've heard of it. Maybe you should have asked me before tonight.
Well, I didn't, this is something that I just looked at and said, that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question about that. The retirement, the light and water and sewer enterprise share for their employees, we get reimbursed from them, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, so it ends up being a wash.
That's correct.
So then, okay, so then if
Again,
it's-
that's another item, if we put it on, is a wash, and would probably confuse people as to why we have so many things on the income side and also on the expenditure side. I mean,
I'll share this.
some of this is going to end up being addressed next year as to the entire budget process.
I just want to caution that, as the treasurer, if I'm required to pay retirement bills, there should be a source identified for those payments. And in the past, we have identified the water, sewer, and light as a source in the town article when we voted to appropriate funds.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at the number for the town. It seemed that it didn't go down, and with us cutting hours, I would have thought that the retirement would have gone down. And the figures that you provided, it didn't seem to go down.
It's not a fixed rate.
It's on a fixed rate?
No. We're paying for market losses that occurred in 2008, 9, and 10. It's a 5-year moving average. Our pension, if you continue to reduce staff, will continue to go up for the next 3 or 4 years, regardless of how many employees are on the payroll.
Sue?
I have a question, because I was told that bill that at the end of the year, it's the town's share of the retirement or whatever, and that it should have gone down because it was, because we all took cuts. And the only share that should have gone up was light and water, because I was under the impression that this was, I don't know what you're saying.
Our total contribution town-wide to Worcester County retirement went up $70,000 year over year. It has little to do with a few employees in town having reduced hours, and everything to do with the Worcester County Retirement Board, which is an appointed member board making decisions about the portfolio and the actuarial decisions about the soundness of the retirement fund that have nothing whatsoever to do with the town of Templeton in particular, and everything to do with the recession and the stock market.
Well,
Our figure, when we look at it's an estimate from the 13 state recap sheet, it did take out the 992,000, which would bring it down to 1.5 something, 511, I believe. The estimate for services showed it's $250,000, and that's the ambulance receipt.
No.
That coming in this year here, we're hoping to get to 180. That's 70, there's your $70,000 right there, Virginia, is we're hoping to get to 180, and we're projecting on the recap sheet of 250.
That still doesn't include the other numbers, but let's move on to the expenditures. Town charges are, I believe we used your number for that. That was 4575838.
That's correct. I didn't make any changes to that because we still have to take it, bottom line from what I have is the 11,972.
Okay. The total school debt has to be on the expenditure side.
It would also have to be on the levy side.
And on our sheet it is.
Right.
It's above the line and below the line.
I didn't include it, so it would be a wash, so it really wouldn't make any impact to the number per se.
All right. Narragansett, the amount that we're paying to Narragansett is $4,430,615.
That's correct, that's Article 27.
Okay. Monty Tech, 601,56.
That's Article 20.
Special articles, 52,694.
That's correct.
Okay. And now, see, this is, again, where we come to the retirement thing. We have the entire retirement amount on. All you have on is the...
That's correct. That's the town's portion of it. This is the town's budget, not necessarily the light and water portion of it. I know we dispensed that, and I did talk with the accountant on that today also.
And this is the number he gave me, so...
Right. That is correct if you look at the entire number, but the town's portion is the $373,059.
Well, he told me that the whole thing was supposed to be on there, so. Abatements, fees, and deficits. 158, 343, and you have 171.
That's correct. I ended up talking with the assessing department, and they ended up giving me a higher abatement number than what we originally had, plus the,
All right, she did not apprise us of
plus
that
the,
number.
plus the
No,
state.
because we went back, this is what we did Wednesday.
Okay,
This is what we did Wednesday because
so I need to change that. Okay.
58,000 is what is coming in from the state.
State debit.
Yeah, I did also mention that we did have to pay out, we do have a deficit, I believe, for 2009 of $13,000 because of the Verizon ATV case that went all the way to the,
Yeah.
yeah, and we had to pay that back, so.
The next thing I have after that is the long-term debt, which is a total of $1,391,046. And you, for your long-term debt, you have $801,657.
That's correct, and that only is a town portion of it.
Dan?
You have light and water in there also, in the sewage.
Well, you tell me what you want me to pay, I'll pay it.
I mean, once again, in the meeting that we had with the accountant and with the treasurer this afternoon, these are the numbers that they came up with, so.
Oh, because that's.
He's correct on the long-term debt of the community. If you didn't ask it properly, because I asked it properly as to what the long-term debt of the community, including the debt exclusion, and the figure that the treasurer gave us on 5/1 is $801,657.
That's right.
May I make a suggestion,
Yes.
please? The purpose of town meeting, annual town meeting, is to provide revenues, to provide appropriations for paying the various warrant articles that appear on the warrant. Will, what you guys are trying to do is to understand how to balance the budget within the resources that the town has available to it. Which does, right, but you're not including the entire town, you're only
Well,
including.
the
If I may finish,
template
please.
that was used was basically what, we had a CPA that we paid $45,000 a year for.
And we no longer have them.
I ended up following his template. And it took me a while
We have a
to
new one.
understand the figures that he provided.
Now, if you would allow me to finish,
Sure.
what I'm trying to express is, we do need to concern ourselves with the amount of money that the town taxpayers have to pay to support the entire budget.
Who pay-
But that's a portion of the entire budget.
That's,
When we go to town meeting, we have to go to town meeting,
who gives you the money for the light and water retirement?
that comes from
Does that come out of the town,
not the taxpayers, no, it
It
does
doesn't
not.
come out of the taxpayers, it comes out of where?
It comes from the light and water enterprises, well, the light's not
That's
enterprise,
correct. So that's not part of the town's responsibility as far as that. Yes, we paid it for them to the retirement fund, but that's not something that we end up having to go out to the taxpayers and get.
That is correct. We don't have to go to the taxpayers for those items. We don't have to go to the taxpayers for the amount of money we get in state revenue. But we include it on our budget because we have to make payments for various items that appear on the warrant. So in the
Wouldn't it
past,
show up twice then?
no.
On the light company and then with the town?
No, we have to be able to appropriate.
You
Sue?
know what, can we stop arguing about who did what and what did what? The
Yeah,
bottom
I wanna,
line is,
I,
we got two different numbers. I know part of it is because my overlay is more. Do we know where the rest of it is?
the 58, 343 is actually the state, they charge us that, so your
Right, I
number.
know, so part of it is what I'm saying is
That's
the
correct.
extra and
And
the
that's-
overlay.
That's included in the packet that I gave out to the selectmen and us, and it's right off the website from the state.
Right, but I'm saying, can we kind of net it out and forget about who did what way? And we got Virginia with the selectmen with a difference of a plus 77. We have the advisory board with a negative 11. We know some of that difference is because of the abatements, fees, and deficits, because my figure, the advisory board figure was higher. Do we know where the other differences are? And forget about arguing about all the washes.
Right, and I just alluded to the fact that when I looked at the service portion of it, for the revenues projected for the ambulance receipts, they projected, and this is in the last 2 years, they've been projecting $250,000 plus. As we sit here now, we're somewhere around 150, and we're hoping to get up to 180 by the end of the year. So if you take 180 from the 250, there's a $70,000 difference in just receipts for the ambulance. I mean, it's projected high.
You have the
We
same
have to
number
stop.
for ambulance.
We have to stop using higher numbers than what we have.
We both have the same number for the ambulance, Will.
May I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
Yes.
We have two boards here tonight,
Yep.
and we're going back and forth on certain numbers. Will the boards be taking a vote at some point to accomplish something tonight? Because at this point, I'm not quite seeing how this process is going to work to resolve much of anything tonight. So are we going to be delving into department by department and looking at those budgets after we look at the revenue and expenditure forecasts, or?
Don't you usually have to find out how much money you actually have to spend before you can go
I
and
understand
spend
that,
it?
but procedurally, I think we need to figure out here, are we going to be taking votes? What are the main things that we're looking to resolve? Because
I would think so.
we do have a time frame here.
As far as I know, we were gonna try to get our budgets down to as close as we can to being the same, so we could go in with the same ideas. But we're very much far apart on this. I think it needs.
I don't think $12,000 is very far apart. And you consider last year we went into town meeting without a budget at all. Now we've got two. That's $12,000 apart. That's not a huge insurmountable obstacle.
Well, I've been reviewing what we had last year as the budget numbers, and I compared it against the ones that I have. Last year's budget numbers for revenue and expenditures were $12,077,850. The ones that we have on the sheet that I ended up giving out as the advisory board numbers, we have $12,014,799 for revenue. And there's $11,000 difference, so the expenditures would be $11,000 more. On the figure that the select board has, they have revenue as $12,447,042 and expenditures of $11,460 and $463,153.
All right, if you want to dispense with this part and move on, let's do.
I think we really need to resolve this before we can move on.
Well, that's what I thought too, but
I'd like to take it at this time, take a poll as to which numbers we're going to end up using of my board. Whatever we bring in as the advisory board, we're going to have to defend.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
On the prior, from the prior account.
That's
I know
correct.
we have a new account.
yeah,
He made adjustments to the sewer enterprise balances and expenditures to their budget that they submitted. He excluded debt service and the pension money.
that's correct.
I don't see that we're excluding any amount for that.
We don't have the sewage portion of it on, so we're not excluding anything. If you want to look at it, the surge number that's on the sheet, the 860, 677 on both top and bottom.
Yes?
If you look into the actual draft, and it was a voted draft, by the sewage department
Of their budget.
on their budget. And if you look into their, I believe it's page 2, further down, they show that the retirement and their benefits number is 54,000. The amount of 43,000, 45,000 for their retirement is in that number.
It's in the 54,000?
Yes, it's in the 54.
Okay. So they've included it in the budget,
That's correct. They included it in their budget.
okay?
I will poll my board, and I'll let you poll your board as to what numbers we want to use.
Could I interrupt for a second? Because
Yes.
I think the Board of Selectmen expenditure number is incorrect. The total, it says 11,461,53.
That's Jeff's number, he just did that.
Yeah, looking at that, that's a $1 million change right there.
When I added it up, it actually, if you subtract the 77,363 from the 12,447,042, you come up with that number. I didn't write it down.
Is the difference still right?
The difference is still correct.
The difference is right.
Okay.
Jeff went through
Oh,
it and
it's a-
did it really fast so we could get it on the paper tonight, and it
It's okay.
turned out with a different
So I
number.
think the expenditure should be
369,674.
Yeah.
That you're correct. That's what I had on mine when I gave it to him.
Because that's going to make it even more confusing if we're not.
Let me go recalc it on the machine and see what we can come up with. Not handheld.
How about this?
Jeff is at that, he just left the office.
Virginia, speaking as a selectman, I'm looking at the numbers from advisory and I'm looking at our numbers. I know we've had a lot of turnover, we've had a lot of transition this year. We've had new software come in, and I don't think we're gonna really have a really good, accurate feel on our numbers until after we close 13, which is way after we have to set a budget.
Can't have an accurate one till
Right,
then.
okay, so, in my opinion, I think we should err on the side of caution, which is to look at the advisory board numbers.
Even though our treasurer and our accountant gave us these numbers,
Right, because there could have been some glitch or something, we're still dealing with issues coming up from city and town. We're still dealing with a lot of unknown factors.
That isn't gonna change the amount of long-term debt.
One of the approaches, just to understand, if I may interject, one of the approaches I took on this is, after going to training last year, to the Finance Committee symposium at Holy Cross, when they said you end up doing the budgeting process, they ended up basically saying that you should end up being physically conservative and probably not estimate on the higher number. That approach is the approach I took, and trying to take and end up not projecting higher numbers than what I really thought we were going to end up doing. So when you end up doing that, I'm sure that there's going to be some level of differences there. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in this particular case. I believe it's only on the approach if you look at the figures per se. Yes, Sue?
I just want to mention something. I mean, the expenditures are what you got from the accountant, correct?
yeah.
Okay, because I think the reason you're off is going to end up being in your local receipts. Know what I mean? Because the figure 2511411 is straight off the recap sheet, and there's a lot of junk included in that I know the number that Will is using, we had changed some of the stuff, because some of them we were able to get a little more accurate figures based
Yes.
on what had been collected. so far this year, so I think that's,
We also took the approach of asking the collector around motor vehicle receipts and other receipts. So, I mean, we tried to get the most recent numbers to end up reflecting on the local receipts as we could with projections. And actually, I have to take and thank the deputy assessor. Her individual actually looked out as to what we will end up approximately getting in the motor vehicle, the third issue. So that was also taken into consideration.
Once again, I have the number that she gave us yesterday. So
what number?
that's- Huh?
I didn't give you that $2.5 million number.
You told me exactly what was in it.
I told you what was in it, I did not give you that number.
Okay.
That number is really taken out of the tax recap sheet, and there's some numbers that really should not be included.
That's what I was trying to say at that meeting, because you guys, remember you guys didn't have the schedule and everything?
It took me quite a while to understand that, doing this last week and asking a lot of questions.
You deal with, can I say
Will,
something?
Virginia, I think, Ken wanted to.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, just in the interest of moving things along here, I think that if we go with the Board of Selectmen number for the expenditure forecast, and that number ends up being incorrect, because I think that there's a likelihood that both numbers could be wrong, probably neither one is correct to the penny. If we go with the smaller expenditure total and we're wrong, we don't have a way to pay, we don't have money appropriated to pay what needs to be paid without scrambling. If we go with the higher expenditure total, and that's wrong, the worst that happens is we have a little extra money appropriated that we can deal with next year. So I think that I would go with my view as a selectman, to go with the advisory board's expenditure total.
With the advisory board's expenditure.
Right, the higher.
Ours is the higher.
Ours is the Board of Selectmen.
Ours is 12,369,674.
I have a different sheet.
Yeah, that's,
What's the total?
Whichever one is the higher one is.
12,369. No, I left this with Jeff this afternoon, he redid it, and it came out 12,369,674.
Well, let me just, injecting one thing. I tried to end up including you so we could end up working these. The bylaw basically states the advisory board is the ones that submit the budget, including this roll-up. We have Mass General Law 39, Section 16, also says that, and the only time that the Board of Selectmen would do it if there was no Finance Committee. And the DOR has already weighed in this, and that 3 cases. So we need to take and end up having one board, and basically I keep going back to other advisory board chairmen in other communities, and they say it is our budget, and we end up as an advisory board have to defend it.
Does that include the revenue forecast?
That's correct.
And the expenditures?
Yes.
Well, I have to defend the treasurer and the accountant that we have hired to do this work, and these are the numbers that they gave me. So, if you're choosing not to use them, why did we bother hiring them?
Well, it depends on how you ask the question as to what they will give you for numbers to put in the sheet.
Jeff was there,
Yeah, you were right.
Dan was there,
That is exactly the number you asked.
that's right.
You counted the wrong way, but the bottom line is still the same.
Yeah.
12,369, 670.
12,369.
Yeah, he recalculated it, changed the number.
Nobody said tonight was gonna be easy with the disaster that we've had behind us.
That's
It's
correct.
gonna take a year to get straightened out.
I understand, but I still think we need to support the people we have working for us now,
Yeah,
and not keep going back to, well, the guy last year used to do it like this, and
yeah, we just go forward, but you also are dealing with a mess for a base.
Well, like I said, I tend to take and end up saying that we should take a more conservative approach. If we take a conservative approach and we come in with higher revenue numbers, we will have more free cash, and we will end up being able to institute a lot of the cuts that we've made in the last 2 years. and also provide for those demands that are being made from us, from departments internally, as well as the school demands. If we use the higher number and we are wrong, we will not end up generating free cash next year.
So you want to make more cuts this year, even though we don't come up with
The
a
only
reason
cut,
to make
the
cuts.
only cut that I have ended up proposing, and this is proposed, because we level funded, and any cuts that we made in the advisory board was for those departments that gave us their bottom line and said, we can end up lowering our numbers to this. So if they came in with a lower number than the level funding from last year, that's the figure that we used. The only thing that I'm proposing here is, and I have talked with the cemetery department, and at great length, the advisory board did discuss that with him during the budget review process. He ended up indicating at that time, he could end up not missing a year of replacing his tractors, because he replaces them every year under a state bidding system. What are they?
Yeah, state bid.
It's a bidding process. And what he does is he ends up turning those machines in, and this is, he's included a $12,000 upcharge to get new equipment, which basically you're buying a 1-year warranty with new equipment. And he's been doing that for a number of years. He alludes the fact that yes, he's getting new equipment, and here we are. We have cut other departments. We have a highway department, which we can't end up funding new equipment, and we're going to end up, in this particular case, when we need a minimal amount of money, is to end up providing that money out of his budget. That's a small indication. I'd rather do that than to end up cutting any further into personnel or personnel time. I do not want to see us do any cuts this year. My expectations are, if we can make it through this year, doing conservatively, and we come up with free cash, hopefully we will start to end up turning around and end up reinstituting hours. If that's not the approach that the select board wants to do, that's fine. But I think I think the advisory board understands that after going through the budget process and hearings.
I understand what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying, except that I would defend the people we have working for us now, who gave us these numbers. We sat and had a meeting with them, they gave us these numbers. So if you are saying they're wrong...
No, I'm not saying they're wrong. I asked the questions, and I got pointed answers as to how can I end up doing this? Do I have to include this? Do I have to include that?
I didn't ask the questions. Dan and Fred sat down together, washed the whole thing out, and gave me the numbers. This is not something I did on my own.
You got the recap sheets all in on time. We probably know more better figures now. All the
Yes.
recap sheets done, how much taxes and stuff are out for all that?
Yes, we have the recap sheets, and most of the figures that I have are from the recap sheets with adjustments of those things that shouldn't be on our expenditure and revenue sheets.
They're right up to par now?
I would say, from my perspective, yes. I spent a lot of time with the assessor, the collector. I've asked questions of the accountant over the period of time. I had a discussion with him.
Why don't we move on to the budget, Will?
Well, I think we really need to end up resolving this.
Well,
I would like to see us take a more conservative approach. At this time, I'll end up polling my board as to which set of numbers they want to use. I will entertain a motion as to which set of numbers you would like to use.
Well, I move that the advisory board accept the numbers that you have provided on this sheet, $12,014,779 for revenue and $12,026,751 for expenses without additional cuts.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Joel?
Abstain, because I'm not really sure the way I want to go.
He's abstaining. No vote. No vote.
You're abstaining? Mary?
No. I'm gonna go
Mark?
with
Yes.
Darren?
Yeah, yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Yeah. Charlie? And I vote yes.
I would entertain a motion from a selectman now. As to which way.
I make a motion that we accept the and use the advisory board's numbers.
I will second that.
Julie?
I'd like
Oh,
discussion.
sure, discussion.
With the new software, are we going to have more accurate revenue projections on a monthly basis, so we know, like, if we have a special town meeting in the fall, what our collections are? We'll be able to do additional appropriations at that point.
I believe the new software is gonna do a lot more for us, correct, Dan?
I'm not the
I
person
know there's a
asked.
budgeting, I believe, well, Jeff's in the other room, but I believe there is a budgeting module in there for the accountants, so he can do that. I believe.
All right.
Jeff?
Somebody's over here.
Well, no, I would like to know that before we vote, because
Go ahead, Bev. Bev, you want to go tell him we need? Sure.
She's going to
I think I told you.
All right.
I got my club.
50 miles an hour.
That's the other bad.
Can you give the two figures, your figure and the selectmen's figure?
Sure. You can, I do. Which figures would you like? The revenue and the expenditures for both?
Yeah, what you're gonna vote on for the numbers?
Well, the vote that we took for the, and this is for the advisory board numbers. Revenue, $12,014,779. Expenditures, $26,751. So we're actually showing $11,972 negative right now.
The selectmen's is revenue, $12,447,042. And the expenditures, $12,369,674, with a difference on the plus side of $77,368.
Can we make adjustments to the tax levy numbers? Because maybe we should take Will's revenue, or the advisory board's revenue, and take your expenditures and...
Because the expenditures for the select board include items that Will didn't include the revenue for them.
Right.
Some of the, like the light and water pension, that is just out of the budget that he's considering here. So it's money in, money out, it would be a wash.
Sue?
I have a
Yes, Sue.
question, through you or through whoever, to Dan. Dan, on your loan schedule you just handed me, the numbers across the bottom are supposed to add up to the total in the most left-hand column?
Hold on.
Do we have the most recent
I don't think you do.
debt schedule?
I think so, yes.
Okay, because
No,
I
I
don't
have
believe
one from
they
May
do.
1st.
It will, wait a minute, maybe I added up the wrong sheet, hold on. Let me do this real quick.
from May
That's
7th.
part one of my question.
I've written all over it.
How much?
798.
Oh, it's the same amount. Unless it's changed.
He added the 174 at the top.
To this?
Right.
855. Yeah, because it doesn't.
What do you get?
And then the second part of my question is on this, and if we're using that on the selectmen's page, if we are losing, good God, thank you, my assistant. And if we're using the 1391, as I look down this desk schedule, I have a question about there's in the first part, there's a Title V loan of 8649, and then there's a Title V and the bottom part, Title V, okay, that's not there, okay. I have a question because Title V does not cost the town anything. That's a wash from the Title V monies we get in. From, if they're like the betterments, we charge the person.
What line number are you talking about?
See, line number 13. And then you've got 21 and 22.
21 and 22 are paid for with betterment, which is the, it's lumped together, Title V revenue and betterment, I just lumped it.
Which is where?
If you look,
Oh, okay,
column
up
E,
there?
column E,
Column E.
it shows-
Correct.
the columns across the top show the
But-
funding source.
Okay. But that's not,
Okay, I think this is outside of the motion in the second we
Oh,
have on the
sorry.
floor right now, so can we hold that off for a
sure,
minute?
we'll hold that.
Okay. Jeff, Julie had a question, which,
I had a question about the Vadar software that we have now.
Yes.
Would that help us do revenue forecasts more accurately than what we're struggling with tonight?
It has an integrated budget model in it, and if you enter some historical, budget forecasting and revenue forecasting requires data.
Right. Right
We
now
will have
we
data starting May
Right.
2013. We won't have historical data in the system. It will eventually refine itself going forward, but in the first year, you'll have to make some assumptions because you don't have any data in the new system, any historical data.
all right, do we have any more discussion, motion? All right, Ken?
Yes.
Yes to go
To
with,
use the advisory board's
okay.
numbers, just to decide a caution.
Okay,
And I will vote yes as well.
okay. I will vote no, only because I feel like I need to support the people that we've hired, so.
Now,
Okay.
can I ask my question?
Are you okay with that, Will? She wants to
Yeah,
ask a
yeah.
question.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to clarify this debt, because I'm trying to find where the differences are. I guess I don't understand why Title V is put under sewer. Title V has nothing to do with the sewers department. And like I said, it doesn't cost anything to the town.
Where are you reading off of, the debt schedule?
The debt schedule, because that comes from,
The five, wouldn't that be there to help?
that comes from the, you know, we collect that from the taxpayer. The Title V loans are of no cost to the town.
Right.
So that would make that number $40,000 less? Is that
No,
what-
no, it's being paid for with funds that are not funded by the tax rate.
Okay.
It's being paid for with.
So it's like a wash, I guess that's what I'm saying, it's coming in from the tax bills?
No.
Yes. Where does it come from?
The, what I have shown, and I don't think everybody has the sheet that we're talking about, but what I have shown in column E, Sue, is the betterment funded portion of the debt.
Right.
Okay. Included in that betterment funded portion is Title V funded portion of the debt.
But Title V is not a betterment.
Correct. That is true. It's mislabeled.
And it's got nothing to do with the sewer
It-
department.
I used that column to identify those sources that were funded through betterment types of funding. And perhaps I could have added another column, I ran out of space, and I could have put in another column that said Title V funded, but I thought for purposes of, you know, just trying to get to a bottom line number here, we could understand which portions are funded through taxation and which portions are funded through other revenue streams. That was the intent of this sheet.
Okay, as long as everybody understands the Title V are a wash, that doesn't cost the town anything. It comes in, the people who have Title V loans pay on their tax bill an additional amount. They have a yearly schedule, a schedule going over 20 years. The money
But-
comes in and it,
All that is true, but we still need to show that there's a debt. There's a debt that the town has that we have to pay. So we need to demonstrate, we need to show, we need to appropriate funds on town meeting floor to pay that debt. So if we don't have, if it's not shown anywhere, if all we say is, well, it's a wash, it's gonna get paid, I won't be able to pay it as the treasurer if the town does not
You won't have
appropriate
a funding
funds.
source.
I understand, okay. That's,
So-
I just was, because it looks like it's something the sewer department has to pay.
I acknowledge it's kind
Okay.
of mislabeled, but
right. I
the
just
intent
wanted
was
to
to
clarify
identify it
that.
as a
Okay.
non-taxed funding source. Yeah.
We've agreed, both chairs have agreed to take and cut the conversation right there and move on to the actual green sheet budget process.
Can
Good
I
idea.
just make one question,
Yes.
please? I know that when we came, John Columbus and I came to a meeting,
Yes.
and we talked about the school district budget and the amount that needed to be read. We didn't actually have the law with us, so I just want to give you a copy of the
I have a copy of the law.
603 CMR.
I have a copy of the law, ma'am.
Okay, and what does the law say?
Pardon me?
What does the law call for?
What does the law call for?
Yes.
It calls for the treasurer of, the one part of it calls for the treasurer to supply the budget numbers to the selectmen and to the chair of the advisory board. I have not received that number, other than the number that was given to the town coordinator. And it gave so many days after the budget process.
So I'll have to get a copy of the certified letter that was sent.
It's right in that first one. It's a long section. I can't remember the number. I have it somewhere. I do have a copy of it.
Well, there was a letter sent, I wasn't in the office today, but there was a letter sent drafted after the school
I
committee
don't
and it
have a
was sent
copy
to
of
the.
it.
Oh, you want it? Yeah.
Yeah. This is what Ruth is talking about is Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16B. Is that correct?